now?" was painted in black Gothic letters touched with gold over the arched window at the landing on the great stairway. Young Mrs. Halloran paused before the window and turned, fancy toiling upward still, entangled in her skirt. "My grief," young Mrs. Halloran said, one hand on her breast and the other barely touching the wide polished handrail. "My lasting grief." "Hurry up, Fancy." Together, young Mrs. Halloran leaning lightly upon the shoulder of her daughter, they moved out of sight down the hall, into the vastness of the upper left wing which, until so recently, they had shared with Lionel. Essex looked after them with distaste. "I should think Lionel would have welcomed the thought of dying," he said. "Don't be vulgar," said Miss Ogilvy. "Even with me, please remember that we are employees, not members of the family." "I am here, however, if you please," Aunt Fanny said suddenly from the darkest corner of the hall. "You will, of course, have overlooked the fact that Aunt Fanny is here, but I beg of you, do not inhibit your conversation on my account. I am a member of the family, surely, but that need not—" Essex yawned again. "I'm hungry," he said. "I wonder if it will be a proper dinner. This is the first funeral since I've been here," Miss Ogilvy said, "and I'm not sure how she manages. I suppose we'll sit down, though." "No one will waste a minute's thought if Aunt Fanny stays safely in her room," Aunt Fanny said. "Tell my brother's wife," she said to Essex, "that I will join her in grief after dinner." "My first funeral, too," Essex said. Lazily, he stood up and stretched again. "Makes you sleepy. You think the old lady's locked up the gin in honor of the day?" "They'll have plenty in the kitchen," Miss Ogilvy said. "But just a teensy one for me, thanks." "It's over," Mrs. Halloran said. She stood behind her husband's wheelchair, looking down onto the back of his head with no need now to control her boredom. Before Mr. Halloran had become permanently established in his wheelchair, Mrs. Halloran had frequently found it difficult to restrain her face, or the small withdrawing gestures of her hands. But now that Mr. Halloran was in the wheelchair and could not turn quickly, Mrs. Halloran was always graceful with him, standing protectively behind him and keeping her voice gentle. "He's gone, Richard," she said. "Everything went off beautifully." Mr. Halloran had been crying, but this was not unusual. Since he had been made to realize that he would not now be vouchsafed a second run at youth, he cried easily and often. "My only son," Mr. Halloran said, whispering. "Yes." Mrs. Halloran forbade her fingers to drum restlessly upon the back of the wheelchair. One should not fidget in the presence of an invalid. In the presence of an old man imprisoned in a wheelchair, one ought not to be impatient. Mrs. Halloran sighed, soundlessly. "Try to be brave," she said. "Do you remember," Mr. Halloran asked, quavering, "when he was born, we rang the bells over the carriage house?" "Indeed we did," Mrs. Halloran said heartily. "I can have the bells rung again, if you like." "I think not," Mr. Halloran said. "I think not. They might not understand down in the village, and we must not indulge our own sentimental memories at the expense of public opinion. I think not. In any case," he added, "the bells are not loud enough to reach Lionel now." "Now that Lionel is gone," Mrs. Halloran said, "I am going to have to get someone to manage the estate." "Lionel did it very poorly. At one time the rose garden was perfectly visible from my terrace, and now I can only see hedges. I want the hedges all cut down, at once." "You are not to excite yourself, Richard. You were always a good father, and I will have the hedges trimmed." Mr. Halloran stirred, and his eyes filled again with tears. "Do you remember," he said, "I wanted to keep his curls." Mrs. Halloran put a little wistful smile on her face and came around the wheelchair to look at her husband. "Dear Richard,"